Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Advancing Cleaning and HVAC Tools for Disinfection. I'm Neil Eisenberg, Vice President of Marketing with Facility Executive Magazine, and this webinar is presented by Openworks. Ann Cosgrove, the Editor-in-Chief of Facility Executive, will be joining us shortly. Before we get started, I'll cover a few housekeeping items. First, please note the control panel on your screen. This is where you can submit questions via the question box contained in that panel. You can send in questions at any time, and these will be addressed after the presentation. Also, please note the orange arrow on the left side of your control panel. Clicking on that arrow will either expand or collapse the control panel, so please be sure the panel is expanded so you can access the question box. If at any time you experience a technical difficulty, please send a message to us via that question section, and someone on our team will answer you privately. And if you're interested in continuing education credits, please note that you'll receive a certificate of attendance in an email from Facility Executive after this webinar. You can report this to your association for continuing education credits. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers. Your experts today are Craig Hammontree and Brian Hall. Craig is National Operations Manager for Openworks, having joined the company in July 2018 as a regional director. He has more than 25 years of management experience, garnered in a variety of industries in the disciplines of information technology, customer service, business development and sales, small business owner startups, operations, and project management. He currently oversees operations for Openworks access to the Midwest regions, as well as franchise development. Prior to coming to Openworks, Craig worked for a large investment group launching their startups and sat on their board for troubled businesses. He developed and created their first franchise model for PME products, along with the role of CEO and COO for two of their most successful startups to date. He has designed and implemented two different sales organizations for IT organizations, as well as manage multiple large-scale projects. Brian Hall has been in the HVAC wholesale business for over 14 years and currently works for a refrigeration supplies distributor, the largest family-owned HVAC wholesale business on the West Coast. He has been a resource for HVAC contractors and building owners across the West Coast to discuss indoor air quality, verification, and strategies to reduce contaminants in the air while still maintaining energy efficiency. Brian has been through multiple manufacturers training to learn different strategies to accomplish these goals. And now I'll turn it over to Craig and Brian. Welcome, Craig. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining. We've got a lot of information for you today, and so I'll just, we'll get right to it. So today's agenda, with the onset of COVID-19, all the different viruses and things that are coming around during this time, deep cleaning and disinfection to remove, viruses and other infectious diseases, it's become critical to provide the safe and healthy environment that our employees are looking for. Commercial cleaning has taken to a new level. HVAC has also been an industry that has risen to the needs of our customers, as far as doing air purification, things like that through your HVAC systems. We'll be talking about that later. But as you can see in the today's agenda, we'll be looking at surface disinfection technology, indoor air quality, what's the right program for you, how do you verify and monitor these types of things, and a little bit about Openworks, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A. So to kick this off, we're going to kind of look at surface disinfection technology and different things that are out there. So there's kind of a misconception in there, and CDC has kind of given us some guidelines on when you look at cleaning versus disinfecting. A lot of people are out there with their cleaning, and they're using chemicals that basically just clean, soap and water, basically, maybe with a little bit different of a pH balance. Then going back and doing some disinfecting is another option as well. But then that promotes a dual cleaning strategy and takes more time, costs facilities a whole lot of extra costs that they don't need to incur. So looking at these different things, how do we do this? There are chemicals out there that do cleaning and disinfecting at the same time. But how often and frequently should you choose to disinfect? It's kind of up to you as far as how your facilities work. So you look at, is there any COVID-19 in your community? low number of people wearing masks. You know, with the mask mandates kind of falling off, you know, there's going to be some, there's probably going to be some infestation of the COVID-19 and other viruses that could possibly come up. You know, is the space occupied by certain populations, such as people that, you know, have a sensitivity to this or high risk for COVID-19 and possibly death? So you look at your facility and you say, okay, what do I need to do? And these were all kind of new things that are coming out from the CDC, and this actually updated, you know, on April 5th by them. So keeping on top of what the CDC is talking about, what they're doing. There's other resources that we'll point out later on in the presentation that will help you keep on top of, you know, what is out there, what do we need to be aware of, and what does our facility actually have when it comes to the population within it. So as we look at disinfectants, there's different ones out there. If you look at the EPA website, you can go in and look at the disinfectants that are on their list in. You know, when COVID first came out, there really wasn't any claims out there that any disinfectant would kill COVID-19. Over this last year, you know, the EPA, you know, went through a rigorous looking at different chemicals and seeing which ones would actually kill the virus. And now they have over 400 surface disinfectant products that the EPA have deemed safe and effective against the virus. So making sure that you're looking at the list on the EPA, if you have cleaners that are in your space, going into their janitor closet and seeing, you know, are they using the correct chemicals? Is this chemical on the list? The other important thing that you want to see is what is called dwell times. Dwell times, each disinfectant has a different, what they call dwell time. How long is the surface wet with the disinfectant chemical? You know, it could be anywhere from 30 seconds to 10 minutes. So you want to make sure that when the crews are using these types of disinfectants, that they're keeping the surface wet for that amount of time to clean the virus. If they're just putting the liquid down and wiping it clean right away, it's really not doing the job that it's supposed to. There's a lot of training that goes into this and making sure that, you know, the workspaces are safe. So making sure, again, look at your disinfectants that you're using, see what the dwell times are, and are they on the EPA list in disinfectant list. Now we're kind of going to look at some different ways to clean and look at different areas. So the first one I want to kind of point out is steam cleaners. This is an effective way of cleaning or disinfecting when it comes to different types of surfaces. Like this one would be for, you know, maybe furniture, things like that, curtains, things where you can't really get a disinfectant spray and wipe it clean. Steam is a little bit difficult to use because you got to make sure that the temperature is at the right, you know, is hot enough, right? So steam must be used close, you know, close to the surface. So then you have issues with too much water. You know, steam cleaning should be avoided on any kind of surfaces that could, you know, that could be damaged by the water or heat, such as painted surfaces, fabrics, you know, porous type surfaces, brick, marble, things like that. So steam is effective when it comes to like carpet, fabric, you know, things like that. Commercial grade cleaners can come back on that, and we'll look at another electrostatic spraying, which we'll talk about in a little while, that can help kind of add to the cleaning of the germs and viruses that are hard to reach. Another option that has come around, and it's been around for, you know, for a while, is the ultraviolet light technology. You know, ultraviolet light has been proven that it does kill viruses. It's used widely in medical facilities. It hits anywhere the light hits will kill the virus. It breaks it up because it's like a UV light, like the sun. The one thing that you have to be concerned about with the UV light is making sure that people are not in the space, because will cause sunburns on the skin, could be fatal in some aspects. So got to make sure that, you know, we you take it very seriously when you put it into the room. They do have some handheld devices that I have seen demonstrated where they pass it over the surface, so where it's not pointing up at the individual using it, but still an effective way of killing the germs and the viruses that are needed. And like I said, most of these are used in the hospital setting. You're going to kind of see a little bit of this now. Robotics have been kind of very popular in spaces that are not occupied, whether that is a school, medical facility, things where people are gone and they're out. These robots now will do ultraviolet light and do a spray so that it does a dual clean. You know, they've been used in, like I said, in industrial manufacturing. They have been very effective against the COVID-19 and other viruses. The UV lights are zapping the virus and breaking them up and killing them. So, and then on top of that, they've been used, like I said, with a spray that they spray out. So been very, very effective. One of the most popular, and I think probably almost everyone has heard of this now, is electrostatic spraying. These little guns, and they have ones that are backpacks. They help with reducing application time because it's a spray that basically has an electrical charge that goes out and kind of bonds itself to any surface that it hits. So like on a chair, where you're sitting in a chair and you have the arms that, you always take your hands and fold them underneath the armrest. Well, it actually gets underneath there as well because it basically forms to whatever it hits. This has been very, very, very effective and probably most commonly used in most facilities these days. The time that it takes to cover and disinfect all surfaces that are hard to reach has been reduced. It applies the chemical more effectively. It eliminates the danger of overuse. It is a very, very light mist, so it can pass over electronics without damaging them. It gives the application of the disinfectant on there long enough to kill the virus. But the EPA does consider electrostatic spraying as a low pressure sprayer, so you want to make sure that the chemicals that you're using in there are a low pressure sprayer, and it should say that on the label of the disinfectant. You can use almost any disinfectant in these, but we want to make sure that it's on the label that it does work in a low pressure sprayer. The other one that was kind of out before electrostatic kind of started taking off was foggers and misters. Foggers and misters, they're really, really good at killing the airborne germs and bacteria. They are great at getting areas that are difficult to clean, behind couches, behind, desks where you can't get a rag to wipe it down. They eliminate, pathogens. Like I said, it gets about everywhere: curtains, floors, walls, whatever it might be. But they're rapid and effective, and they hang around in the air long enough that it does kill an airborne pathogen as well. So if you have an area that has been, reported that COVID was in there, this is an effective way to do that, to make sure that everything is done correctly. The issues with foggers are the mist. You want to make sure you have the proper PPE on, because the mist can be breathed in because it hangs around so much. So you want to make sure that your whoever is applying it is using the correct PPE. A new technology that came out is, after the coronavirus was detected about a year and a half ago, is this antimicrobial surface protection. This is a product that lasts anywhere from 24, 30 days, or even longer. We have some that we have seen, and actually Openworks uses one that they have a claim for 90 days. So, but once this is applied to the surface and allowed to dry, the solution creates a bond that is kind of unique. And we'll kind of go over this a little bit more in the presentation later. but it has a spike structure and a positive electrical charge that actually kills the cell walls of the virus. It's a like I said, a fairly new technology, and one that I think we've seen great results from it as far as doing testing on the surfaces over a length of time. Now, the cleaning products that you use after you apply this have to have a certain pH level to make sure that you don't kill the surface itself. If it's too high or too low on the pH scale, it could take the protectant off. And with that, I'm going to transfer it over to Brian. He's kind of going to go into the HVAC systems that can help with air quality within your facilities.
Thank you, Craig. I will be discussing indoor air quality, commonly abbreviated as IAQ, as well as other strategies that can be implemented through your HVAC systems already in place. If you have searched the internet recently for products or strategies for disinfection for your HVAC system throughout your building, you are probably overwhelmed by the number of products and strategies that are suggested. Many products and strategies are being marketed as effective for coronavirus disinfection, but how do you know what's best to use in your workplace? So let's get into some of those ideas. Bringing in fresh air is one of the main and best strategies you can do to keep your indoor air quality in check. Good ventilation can help to offset the absence of natural wind and reduce the concentration of viral particles and CO2 in your indoor air. The lower concentration of viral air and CO2, the less likely viral particles can come into contact with your eyes, nose, and mouth, or be inhaled into your lungs. Utilizing protective ventilation practices or adding proper interventions can reduce the concentration of airborne viral particles and reduce the overall amount that occupants can come in contact with. Please note, Openworks is not an IAQ expert. However, they do partner with specialists in the field to provide you with the best information and newest technologies available. According to the CDC, you will want to ensure that ventilation systems in your facility are operating properly. In many cases, the existing fresh air intake on HVAC systems has been partially closed down or even completely closed off, allowing little to no fresh air into the building. Most building codes have already required a minimum amount of fresh air into your building, even before the coronavirus. Now it has become even more crucial. The closing of fresh air dampers was typically done to enable energy savings and put less wear and tear on the HVAC unit by not allowing hot summertime air into the building that needs to be mechanically cooled by the compressors of the AC unit. Fresh air is typically brought in through the HVAC system by use of a fixed fresh air damper or a modulating fresh air economizer, or could be also done through makeup air units. Here we have strategies for improving the ventilation and indoor air quality of your buildings. You can do things such as increase the percentage of outdoor air through your HVAC system. This can be accomplished by opening those fresh air dampers to a higher operating percentage, or you can program your economizers, if you have them, to bring in more fresh air. We can consider using natural ventilation, such as opening doors or windows if it's safe to do so. This again will help to dilute the stagnant indoor air with fresh outside air. However, this only makes sense if the conditions outside are optimal and is allowed at your building. We can improve central air filtration. This is accomplished by increasing the MERV rating of air filters installed. You'll want the highest MERV rating filters you can possibly have without significantly diminishing the designed airflow or putting too much static pressure on your HVAC unit. Historically, in commercial buildings, we see MERV ratings of about 7 to 10 for the filters that have been installed historically. And we're starting to see a push to using MERV 13 filters. They're becoming much more popular and are collecting much more particles and dust in them. Our next strategy is called demand controlled ventilation. This is basically a cross between energy saving strategies while also meeting fresh air initiatives. And you do this by actively monitoring the indoor air quality of the space. You would have to have an economizer tied to a CO2 sensor that is in the occupied space. The CO2 sensor monitors the building's ability to ventilate occupied spaces to be sure the air is staying clean. It then allows us to adjust how much fresh air is coming into the HVAC system through the economizer, while also looking at the outside air temperature and humidity to decide if it makes sense to run the mechanical cooling compressor, or does it make more sense to just bring in fresh air and we can cool the building off in that way. Demand control ventilation can also eliminate other common strategies, such as running your HVAC system for 2 hours before an occupied period to clean the air, or opening fresh air dampers to a higher percentage that we're not necessarily sure that we need. While utilizing the CO2 sensor, we'll be monitoring the quality of the air in the building, and we'll only bring in fresh air when we need to in order to satisfy our air quality standards, or if it makes sense to do so from an energy saving standpoint. It's truly the best of both worlds. Our next strategy is generating clean to less clean air movements. This is done by reevaluating the positioning of supply and exhaust air diffusers or dampers and adjusting zone supply and exhaust flow rates to establish a measurable pressure difference. You can have staff work in clean ventilation zones that do not include your high-risk areas, such as visitor reception or exercise facilities. Effectively, this means if you have an area that is considered to be less clean or is highly occupied, you can use an exhaust fan to remove the air from that part of the building and not let it recirculate throughout the building's main ductwork. Keep in mind, in order to keep the building pressure balanced, you will need makeup air units to replace any air that is removed by an exhaust fan. Our last one is to install an indoor air quality device into your HVAC ductwork system. It's a great strategy to help clean the air. There are many products in the market that utilize different strategies for purification, such as UV lights, like Greg was mentioning, ionization, and other products out there that produce some sort of vapor hydrogen peroxide or photocatalytic oxidation. We'll discuss more of these in detail shortly. Next slide, please. So monitoring the indoor air quality through an HVAC system can bring cost savings to your building, sustainability, and comfort with real-time data on temperature, humidity, and CO2 levels, all in an easy-to-use platform. Studies have shown that more control of temperatures and monitoring of CO2 levels reduces the stress level of your workforce, customers, and tenants, in turn raising the productivity and satisfaction levels. A good energy management system will provide 24/7 real-time intelligence for the environment of the occupied space. These systems can also help to identify overspending on air conditioning or heating as well. Ideally, we want our control system to alert facility managers if temperature gets too high, humidity gets too high, or CO2 gets too high. Identifying these problems before they get out of hand, we can address them quickly and take care of any problems before they really arise. A control system that I suggest and I use common is called Pelican Wireless. It's a very good system, great value, and provides everything that we were just talking about. It does require the installation by a qualified HVAC company. Next slide, please. Next, we'll talk about devices that can be installed into your HVAC duct systems that are already in place. These are all marketed to clean the air. The three most common strategies for these devices are UV, ionization, and vapor hydrogen peroxide. Although there are many products on the market that claim to clean the air, most utilize the same technologies as what we discussed and may offer only one or up to all three of those. UV has been one of the longest standing technologies most people are aware of. UV lights can definitely disinfect surfaces. However, it does take dwell time for the light to work effectively. Although this is a great strategy for non-moving surfaces, air in the HVAC system is almost always moving. It can pass through the UV light so quickly that the air does not become completely disinfected. Instead, UV lights are used to disinfect the inside of an AC unit itself. The inside of the HVAC unit is a very dark and moist place. This creates a breeding ground for bacteria and mold. By using a UV light positioned to shine on the evaporator coil, it can keep the inside of the AC unit clean and disinfected. UV lights work at their peak as soon as they are installed and start losing effectiveness over time. Bulbs will usually need to be replaced every 1 to 3 years, depending on the manufacturer's recommendations. Ionization is the second most common one. It utilizes a strategy of producing negative and positive ions to generate clean air in the same way that nature produces clean air. Ionization is naturally occurring all the time and it's what gives the clean air smell when you're at a beach or in the forest on top of a mountain. That's nature producing ions. Because the ions are both negatively and positively charged, they can be attracted to each other and cling to contaminants in the air. This changes the molecular makeup of virus strains and effectively neutralizes them. In addition to neutralizing viruses, the technology will also attract to other particles in the air, and it turns microparticles into slightly larger specks of dust. Now the particles that were small enough to pass through the air filters are now becoming larger and being able to be caught by that air filter. This effectively increases the air filter MERV rating, and it can take additional stuff out of the air that it couldn't have before. What can be considered a downside of this technology, though, is particles that are suspended in the air may not make it back to the air filter. As they become larger and heavier, they can fall out of the air and land on your surfaces. This will make a room dustier and appear to be more dirty than it is. Although what we actually have done is clean the air and made it so you are now not breathing in all those particles that are now sitting on the surfaces. This extra dust is usually at its worst within the first couple of days after installation. However, there is always new dirt and particulate being introduced into an indoor space, so you're always going to have additional dust. There are typically no replaceable parts for ion generation devices. However, it is important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for cleaning the device. Typically, it can be done at the same interval as replacing your air filters and can be done at the same time. The last technology is a vapor hydrogen peroxide, or also can be called photocatalytic oxidation. This is achieved by shining a UV light on a cell that acts as a catalyst. The process produces an off-gassing of vapor hydrogen peroxide that will get distributed through the supply air ducting of the building. This vapor hydrogen peroxide cannot be seen, however, it is landing on surfaces and disinfecting wherever it lands. The UV light and catalyst cell have a relatively long life. However, they will need to be replaced every few years per the manufacturer's recommendations to keep up on their effectiveness. There are not very many products on the market that can offer all three of those technologies in one package. One that I suggest is the Dust-Free Active. It does come standard as an ion generating device with photocatalytic oxidation. It does have the ability to then add a UV light that you can put in and shine on that evaporator coil to keep that clean as well. Please remember, air purifiers are best used to provide enhanced air quality for your employees. However, it is not recommended as a replacement for proper physical disinfection of the workplace environment. With that being said, I'll turn it back over to Craig to discuss what is best for your facility.
All right, thanks, Brian. So with all these different technologies and everything that's out there, from electrostatic sprayers to air purifiers to the EPA's list in disinfectants, what's the right program for your facility? We looked at different types here, like I just said, electrostatic foggers. It's a product comparison of everything that they do and what they don't do. So, reach out to your company that's cleaning your facilities. They should have this information. They should be able to put together a plan that works best for your facility. Whether it might be steam cleaners, they're a great option for soft surfaces like carpet and fabric, but best practice is to follow the steam cleaning with a disinfectant clean. It is important to note that the EPA does not approve equipment technology, but only chemicals for disinfecting. We looked at UV lighting, different ways to use that, right? You can use it as a robot, you can use it as a handheld, you can put it into your HVAC systems, but want to make sure that that's the right way you want to go, because the expense and what you have and what your budget offers, you just want to make sure that you talk to someone to give you some advice. So cleaning and verification and monitoring, your ability not only to do the work of the cleaning, disinfecting, air quality control, but to also ensure your building occupants know and feel confident that, everything's being done correctly. In a recent survey that Openworks did back in December about the COVID vaccine, the cleaning, we researched about 450 employees across various industries, and we found that 1/3 of the employees really didn't think that their employers were doing enough to keep their workplace clean and disinfected. The same survey, we found that employees are deciding whether they're going to get the vaccine or not get the vaccine. So what can you do? What can you do to ensure that your building and your employees feel safe, and people that are entering your buildings, whether it's a customer or a student or whoever it might be? So looking at different things that can be done. While many facility managers, you guys have done a phenomenal job over the year, just making sure that your facilities are up to speed and getting cleaned and being disinfected. But you want to make sure that you're using people that are trained and certified service providers. There's a lot of training that goes into this. We work with all of our cleaning crews on a regular basis to make sure they're up to speed on the new information that comes out. It's a constant, monthly training, that new things, new chemicals, new procedures, new things from the CDC, the EPA, the World Health Organizations, all of them coming with new ideas, and we stay on top of that and make sure that our cleaners are trained on what's new. Making sure that your cleaning company is using EPA list in disinfectant products. That's very, very important, and they're using the dwell times. Putting together a program that is looking at high touch services, light switches, door handles, elevator buttons, as it shows here in this slide. Just making sure that you guys are special attention to these more frequently touched areas. This will help with your efforts to control this virus. Another way that you can demonstrate to your employees and staff and visitors as well, into your facilities, that you've taken the measures, is by displaying signage that lets everyone know that this is being done. People have asked us, what type of display would you have out there that shows this, but there's different things you can do. There's testing, there's the ATP testing. You could show checklists that, hey, this is what we're doing all the time to get this done, that we're cleaning this daily, we're cleaning this section weekly, we're doing there's a lot that you can. But one of the things that we have found that is the cheapest and the easiest to do is signage. I know in our facilities that we work with, if we have a COVID outbreak, or someone that has come in and said, hey, one of our employees had COVID, we go in and we do a special cleaning in those facilities. Well, one of the things that we do is we put up a signage that lets everyone know that, hey, this place, that there was an outbreak, but this place has been cleaned and disinfected. And it goes a long way. And it helps the employees and your visitors feel, like that you care. ATP testing, it can be costly, but it will tell you whether there is bacteria and things living on your desk, your tables, your chairs, things like that. So you can look at that as an option. But like I said, talk to your providers, the people that are cleaning your offices and your schools or your healthcare facilities. Make sure that they are, they have the knowledge they need to make sure that your employees feel safe. But here's some of the resources that I've been talking about, during the presentation. EPA, CDC, OSHA, World Health Organization. These are great avenues for you to get updated information on a regular basis. Like I said, Openworks works with our crews constantly on updating anything that comes out from these organizations to make sure they're up to speed on what's happening, what to use, how to use it. And like I said, not just for COVID-19, but for any of the viruses out there to help, keep people in the workplace and keep them well. So a little bit about Openworks. If you haven't heard from us, we have been around for about 35 years. We do have 23 regional offices across the country. We operate in all 50 states. We have a huge number of service providers. We have facilities, 55,000 plus. The one thing that I'm very, very proud of is our customer retention rate, and that's 98%, when the average for the industry is around 53%. So it's we really pride ourselves on that. We really work hard to keep our customers and know that they feel safe with the provider that they've chosen. Some of the advantages, like I said, we talked about just on the last slide is, we've been around since 1983. Nationwide network of elite providers. Like I said, we train them constantly. We work with them on an ongoing basis, making sure they know exactly what to do, how to do it correctly. And that's not just in disinfecting, but that's in all aspects of keeping your facilities clean, safe, and where you're excited to go to work and have a nice environment. Our 98% customer retention rate is above average, and it's nice to be able to say that. All of our products that we use when it comes to disinfecting are on the list in from the EPA. So we make sure that on a regular basis, we're checking with our cleaners, making sure they're using the right disinfectant, so you can be assured that that is being done. We use the CDC and OSHA standards when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, and all of our crews are HVAC disinfectant certified. So they go through, like I said, a rigorous training to make sure they know exactly, we talked about dwell times, very, very important. Make sure that they understand that, how to do things, how to spray, what PPE to wear while they're doing these types of functions. So what Openworks did during this time of COVID is we started looking at the way we were doing business and what the industry and what the customers were asking for. So we put together a program called Totalworks. And one of the things that we came in was Totalworks with continuous care, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit more in depth. This is the microbial surface that will help your disinfectant, make it more productive and get rid of the virus a lot longer. So one of the things we did is we looked at, okay, where do people touch the most, right? What does cleaning and disinfection, what does that include? What is Totalworks all about? You'll see Sani Services, InfectiGuard and InfectiGuard Plus. So you can see a list here of all the things that we have on our list. We call it scope of work that we make sure that we hit every single time we go in for a cleaning, based off of the scope of work that you pick. So as I said, we put together Sani Services. So we have Sani Care, Sani Works, and Sani Tech. These were looking at different facilities. Like I said, you have to look at your facility and what is best for you. So this is an ongoing, scope of work for your facility. You can look at cleaning workspaces daily, restroom and kitchen daily on the Sani Care. All of those Works Tech all daily. The thing where it starts to be a little bit different is what do you really need? What do are you needing more disinfectant than someone that's maybe doesn't have that many people that are in and out of the building, or do you have like a school or a medical facility where you need someone there multiple times a day doing disinfecting and hitting those high touch? Like I said, when people see people cleaning, they feel more safe, right? So we have put together packages and things that we can customize for each of your facilities. Then we also looked at this and said, okay, well, what happens when we have a coronavirus, someone comes in and says, hey, I've conducted this, I have coronavirus, we have to go in and do a special cleaning. So we put together these types of, these two different, one time where we come in, we do the clean, whether it's InfectiGuard or InfectiGuard Plus. It's a 6-step process. InfectiGuard Plus is a 6-step process that was put together by GVAC. And it's been certified. It's something that people feel safe. And like I said, we put a certification up that it has been done. So people, when they come back to work, they look at this and go, they know that their place is clean now and there is no viruses around. We've talked a lot about continuous care, the antimicrobial surface protection. This is kind of a picture that kind of helps kind of say what this is about. So I talked about the spiky structure. Each one of these spikes is electrically charged. So as the virus comes down and tries to hit the surface, it has no flat surface to stick to, which breaks open the walls and makes it kills it. Whereas a flat surface that's been unprotected, it sits there and lingers for quite a few days, as we've talked about, or you've heard that, you know, depending on the surface type, how long the virus will actually stay around. And some surface up to 7 days. So you have to be making sure that you're cleaning on an ongoing basis. This gives you, this continuous care gives you a little bit more peace of mind that the bacteria is being eliminated. And this is a product here that you can actually, like I said, reach out to your people that are cleaning your facilities and ask them about it if you're interested. But it's applied through a electrostatic sprayer, so it's actually wrapping itself around chairs, tables, desks, whatever it might be. Now, one of the things that we've introduced at Openworks is, because of our relationships with Brian, and then we've put together our own HVAC surface, so we can actually not only look at and bring in the right people, such as Brian, to install some of these, you know, UV lights or itemization or anything like that. We also can do your maintenance as well on your HVAC system, whether that is, you know, belt changes, coil cleans, you know, or all the way up to difficult jobs as replacing a complete unit. So if you like to consolidate some of your vendors, Openworks is here to help you with that as well. We do, you know, preventative maintenance and all the way up to, you know, emergency response. And with that, I am going to open it up for any questions that you guys might have.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Brian. And this is Ann Cosgrove, the Editor-in-Chief of Facility Executive. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join you at the very start, but I am here for the Q&A and have been listening in. So thank you, gentlemen, and thanks everyone for sending in your questions. We will take several of those now. So, okay, Craig and Brian, I'm going to put some questions out to you, and whoever wants to take them, please feel free. Okay, so the first one, there was some talk. I'll focus on disinfection of surfaces for a few minutes here. So we do have some questions on that. So, Craig, you had talked about Openworks and cleaning to CDC disinfection standards and and GVAC and some of the other you know, programs that you've all been working into. So the question was, is frequent disinfection of surfaces still required by the CDC? And I know you had talked about it, different facilities, different needs and frequencies, but what have you seen over the past, you know, few months as things have been changing? Is that frequent disinfection still being required, or what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, you know, the CDC is changing, you know, its stance on different things all the time. But I look at it as we still have quite a few people out there that are, you know, concerned about the coronavirus and conducting whether that's them getting it and taking it home to a loved one. The frequency has gone down a little bit, but I think that it's important not only for coronavirus, but others, but it also keeps your employees healthy as well. So continuing to do these types of disinfectant services that you have over the last year is something you probably need to look at and say, okay, maybe not daily, maybe every other day or 3 times a week, but making sure that that is being done, because a lot of cleaners out there are not using a disinfectant cleaner. They're just using a cleaning solution, a neutral cleaner to clean your facility. So just making sure that they are using a disinfectant is important.
Thank you. And I'm going to stay on that. You just mentioned cleaners, cleaning products specifically. And we do have a question about continuous care, the antimicrobial surface protection that you talked about just toward the end of the presentation there. And the question is, does it kill COVID? So can you talk about that?
Yeah, so what it is that you have to disinfect and clean before you put the continuous care down. It must be disinfected from the beginning, but once that surface is down, any bacterial that tries to attach itself to the surface will not be able to, because of the structure. Like I said, I'll back up. I think it's the last slide I had on here. You'll see the spikes here that keep it from adhering to the surface. It has no flats. A virus has to have a flat surface to set itself on. And if it doesn't have a flat surface, then it will break up and die. With the continuous care, it has an electrical charge as well. So just kind of like it grabs onto the virus and pulls it in and kills it at the same time. So that is that's what that product is actually designed for.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow on that area of the antimicrobial. You had also mentioned in the beginning about being sure to, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but the cleaning products that are used once continuous care is put on surfaces in a facility, they should be a certain pH. You mentioned something about that. So is there any commentary you can provide there that folks should know about?
Yeah, so there is. So depending on what product you use, you need to make sure you look at the label. The label will tell you what the pH level on, because some of your cleaners, your disinfectant cleaners could have a low pH right around 3, all the way up to, some of them are 10. So you want to make sure that whatever product that your cleaning crew is using for the continuous care or the antimicrobial surface protectant, that they're using the right pH level for that cleaning afterwards. If it's too high, it will start knocking it down. If it's too low, the same thing. So you want to try to have a neutral disinfectant cleaning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears for a minute because we do have an HVAC question, and I know that was a significant part of the presentation as well. So in talking about the keeping buildings safe in the light of everything we've been dealing with in the past year with COVID and now with other, obviously viruses and bacteria that have already been on our radar. Can you talk about how frequently we should have our HVAC checked is the question, and filters replaced? So maybe focusing on filters replacement as part of a preventive maintenance program. What do you all recommend as far as filters, and then any other aspects you want to mention as well is welcome.
Sure, so I can take that one.
Thanks, Brian.
Filters typically being changed quarterly is best. If you're increasing your MERV rating, that means that you're going to be collecting more dust on those filters, and they're actually going to need to be replaced more often. So you might go to monthly or every other month. That's going to be your best practice. Filters themselves, although they're good for catching stuff in the air, one of their number one priorities is actually to protect the HVAC equipment. As the filters load up with dust and other contaminants on them, it's going to put more stress on those filters or on the HVAC units, and can cause issues down the road with low airflow. So we definitely do want to be changing them at minimum quarterly, but if you're increasing that MERV rating, you're going to want to change them more often.
Okay, thank you for that. So this question, I'm not sure if it has to do with a facility per se, but I'm going to ask it because these things could have certainly happened in a commercial facility. And Craig, this might be more towards you, but of course, whoever wants to jump in. So you talked about ionizers, the ionizers as tools for air quality cleaning. So it says the question is when it drops quote unquote dust bunnies on a floor, and if your pet gets it stuck on their paws, is the coronavirus dead and hence can't spread the virus to owners? Is that something that you might comment on?
So I can comment on that one as well. The ionizers are actually changing the molecular compound of what's in the air, so it's killing the coronavirus. Different manufacturers have done their different studies, and each one claims something a little bit different. But they have proven to be effective against the coronavirus in different size chambers and different dwell times. But it's not something that is going to suspend out of the air and land on the ground, and then you can pick up for a dog or even people. We are effectively killing the cell that it has.
Okay, thank you. And I have anything else? I'm sorry, Craig, did you want to jump in?
No, I'll let Brian answer that one.
Okay, then I have, let's see, I think we have one last question to wrap it up, unless we get a few more. But the question was, you had talked about, it has to do with equipment. Electrostatic sprayers were one category that you talked about, and then misters and foggers. Can you just reiterate kind of the difference between those? I know there was a chart showing the differences, but also you talked about them in the beginning. Could you just describe maybe kind of what the different applications and features of those are?
Yeah, so your electrostatic sprayer, like I said, it puts an electrostatic charge to the molecule, the vapor that you see coming out of the gun. And what that does is it makes it cling to whatever it touches. It literally wraps itself around objects. Like I said, if you picture yourself in your armchair, in your desk chair, you put your hands down and your hands kind of go over the edge always. Well, it actually will get underneath there. So you're looking at a place that you touch a lot, but necessarily people aren't wiping or disinfecting underneath there. Or underneath your table, your desk, where you're looking at your desk and you clean the top of it, but necessarily sometimes you'll touch the bottom of it, for whatever reason, but no one ever cleans or wipes it down underneath. But that's where the vapor will get in there because of that electric charge. The foggers and the misters do not have an electric charge, so you will see it's almost the CDC calls it almost fumigation. So if you ever pictured that big tent over a house that has an infestation of some sort, like of bugs of some sort, they use a spray or a fogger to go in there and hit everything. And that's what this does, is it emits a mist out there, and you can control the size of that mist, whether it's small or large. The problem with that is that you do not want to get it around electronics. It will make papers wet, whereas electrostatic does not. But it fills the room, and so it does a good job of cleaning the room, the air inside the room. But the person doing it obviously has to wear a respirator, goggles, everything, a full suit, because you don't want to sit there and breathe it all the time. So that's kind of the difference. I hope that answered your question. If not, you can definitely reach out to us and we can explain it better.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. We do actually have another question, so I will stay on since we have a few minutes. And I thank everyone for sending in the questions. And this is about high-end residential apartments. And the question specifically is, what is the best policy or strategy with cleaning to manage a high-end residential apartment? Because much of the focus has been on the workspace and that type of environment. So is there anything specific, whether surface disinfection or HVAC, that you would recommend for high-end in terms of health and safety?
I think, and I think Brian could probably add to this with their HVAC, but we do a lot of apartment complexes at Openworks all across the country. As far as inside your common areas, the office or the play area or the shared spaces, I'll just call them that. I can't even think what the names of them are now, but cleaning those the same way you would clean any business. Any kind of room or office area or medical facility or school, do the same thing in those areas. The common areas, whether it is hallways, things like that, making sure that you're wiping down. If there's elevators, making sure that you're wiping those inside there with a disinfectant and help control that. Obviously inside the rooms, not much you can do there. but outside those areas, cleaning them the same way you would clean any business that you would have to help reduce the spread. Brian,
from a HVAC standpoint, if there is any common areas, we'd consider that more of a commercial space. That would be the area where you could monitor your indoor air quality with a CO2 sensor, and it's common to bring in fresh air from the outside. But for the actual apartments themselves, there's probably not much you can do, with the exception of increasing filter changes and MERV rating of the filters themselves, or installing some sort of indoor air quality device into each individual HVAC unit, depending on what you have. But you would have to do it on a per ductwork basis for each apartment. So that would be the easiest way. It's not common to monitor indoor air quality with any device in a residential application.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for the question. Okay, so we do have time for one last question. They did want to come in, so they did keep coming in, so I didn't want to cut us off too early. This question is about the HVAC technicians, whether those are outsourced, and of course they're in-house too in many of our listeners' facilities. So I do want to get to this question, and it was what should HVAC techs use to remove and replace air filters to keep themselves healthy against COVID, other viruses. So when I say use, I'm going to take that as whether it's PPE or other types of tools. Can you talk about the technician perspective there?
Sure. So the best thing that they can do is utilize the proper PPE, wearing gloves while removing the air filters and respirators, or something to cover the face. You don't necessarily need something too crazy, but when the air filter is being removed from an HVAC system, the particles that are on it are going to get kind of blown up into the air around the technician that is removing those filters. So really being able to cover their face, their nose, their mouth, wearing gloves, that's going to be the best thing that they can do. I'm not familiar with any other technologies or practices that is going to eliminate anything coming off those filters when they are taken out.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think we've come to the end of the hour, and I want to thank both of you for your time for the presentation today and all this great information. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone in the audience for listening in today, for sending in your questions. We appreciate your time. So we also want to thank Openworks for sponsoring the webinar today. A recording of the webinar will be available online at our website, facilityexecutive.com. It will also be available on the Openworks website, and that's openworksweb.com. You can see the recording there, as well as all the other information that the company has to offer, some of which you've seen today. So we will invite you to visit their site as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.